Apologies, apparently we're very pressed for time, so we'd like to maximize what we can. A very good afternoon to everyone on my behalf in this panel. My name is Tzimitras. I'm the director of the Peace Research Institute Oslo, and it is my distinct pleasure to be moderating this afternoon's panel on resolving conflict and economic prospects, lessons from Cyprus and beyond. This is a panel that follows, I think, complements what we've already heard and will be paving the way towards the next panel. Let me be fairly bold and say that, to my mind, the combined effects of what we're looking at around us, from Ukraine to Gaza and from Nagorno-Karabakh to Yemen, means that, to my mind, there is no such thing as a frozen conflict. And I'm saying this because we tend to be taking things for granted fairly often. But I would suggest that we need to have a combination of realism, a sense of urgency, a thinking outside the box, if you like. 2024 has been a year of anniversaries for Cyprus. Yes, it's the 20 years from accession to the European Union, but it's also the 20 years of the failure of the Annan Plan. It was the 50 years of the tragic 1974 events, and it was the 60 years since the establishment of the UN presence in Cyprus that is now the second longest running in the world. So obviously, throughout this time, we had a host of challenges and a host of opportunities. And every day that passes, to my mind, without the solution of political problems on the ground, like the Cyprus problem, sees either the addition of new ones, new layers to existing problems, or new problems as such added, sketching a web that is nearly impossible to tackle. We stand united by the bonds of common suffering, but also, I would suggest, of common opportunities, from climate to migration and from security to energy. It's obviously extremely important that we strive for just and sustainable solutions, but at the same time, we need to be absolutely realistic and focus on what can be managed on the ground. I'm saying this because sometimes we seem to be waiting for solutions that unfortunately may not come, thinking that metaphysically everything afterwards will fall into place. But sadly, this might not be the case. Hence, I think it is important to, at least as a mental exercise, focus in parallel on things that can be managed, on things that can be done irrespective of the much-wanted solution in a regional framework. And the economy can be one of them, I would have suggested, with a peace dividend in mind, with linkages between the two communities and beyond at a regional level, with transformative scenarios that can take us forward. From interconnectivity to interdependence to cooperation, ultimately to peace. And that's the logic of this panel, to see how economic prospects could be tackled with a view to reducing or hopefully resolving conflicts. With the permission of my fellow panelists, I'll turn to MP Loucas Fourlas to be the first. Also, in fact, he's our host. Yes. So thank you very much for being on this panel. Thank you. Please kick it off.
Thank you. Allow me to speak to my mother language. I will be very brief because I want to give my time to my fellow panelists. Θα μιλήσω ελληνικά και να πω πολύ σύντομα, διότι θέλω να δώσω το χρόνο στους συναδέλφους και στους φίλους στο πάνελ. Όταν πριν από περίπου 15 χρόνια είχα την ευκαιρία να πάω στο Πανεπιστήμιο Κολούμπια για σεμινάρια για το πώς μπορούμε να λύσουμε διαφορές έχοντας οικονομικές επιπτώσεις θετικές, μου έκανε εντύπωση ότι όταν μιλούσαμε για Κύπρο ήταν λίγο συγκρατημένοι. θεωρούσαν ότι ήταν πολύ πιο εύκολο να λυθεί το πρόβλημα της Γερμανίας, Ανατολική Δυτική Γερμανία, της Βορείου της Ιρλανδίας, αλλά όταν μάθαιναν ότι είμαι Κύπριος, είχε μια συστολή στο ότι κάπου τα πράγματα δεν βλέπουμε να οδηγούνται προς λύση. Και θυμάμαι κάποιος χρησιμοποίησε και έναν κομμάτι από το βιβλίο του Άμος Ως, ενός γνωστού, πάρα πολύ γνωστού Ισραηλινού συγγραφέα, ο οποίος έλεγε ότι καμιά φορά οι συγκρούσεις δεν είναι παρεξηγήσεις. Για να μπορεί να τις λύσεις σε έναν τραπέζι εύκολα με μια συνδιαλλαγή, όταν υπάρχουν βαθιά ριζωμένα μέσα σου το αίσθημα του δικαίου. Και αν και από τη μία πλευρά και από την άλλη πλευρά έχουν μέσα τους το αίσθημα του δικαίου και δεν μπορεί κανένας να υποχωρήσει, άρα δεν μπορεί να υπάρξει συμβασμός, αν μπορώ να χρησιμοποιήσω αυτή την έκφραση. Είναι αντίλεκτο ότι όταν λυθεί ένα πρόβλημα, σκεφτείτε μόνο, και κλείνω με αυτό διότι παραλαμβάνω θέλω να δώσω τον χρόνο στους φίλους εδώ να μιλήσουν. Σκεφτείτε ένα νησί στην άκρα της Μεσογείου, ενοποιημένο, με λυμένο το θέμα της ασφάλειας του, ενδεχομένως να είναι το ΝΑΤΟ η λύση, ένα νησί το οποίο είναι στο ΝΑΤΟ, με Τουρκοκύπριους και Ελληνοκύπριους να ζουν κάτω από μία σημαία και κάτω από μία πατρίδα, το τι δυναμική θα υπάρξει στην οικονομία. Απλώς έτσι να το σκεφτούμε για ένα λεπτό. Τι σημαίνει για το εμπόριο, για την ναυτιλία, για κοινές δράσεις στην ενέργεια. Τι σημαίνει για αυτό, τι σημαίνει όχι μόνο για την Κύπρο, αλλά τι σημαίνει για την Ελλάδα, για την Τουρκία, για την ολόκληρη την περιοχή. Ένα λιμένο Κυπριακό και μια ενιαία Κύπρος, η οποία δεν θα έχει πλέον το πρόβλημα όπως το γνωρίζουμε. Μερικοί γεννηθήκαμε και μεγαλώσαμε ζώντας αυτό το πρόβλημα και ελπίζω να μην το κληρονομήσουμε και στα παιδιά μας. Με αυτά βάζω μόνο κάποιους τίτλους. Η περίπτωση της Βορείου Ιρλανδίας. Η οικονομική ανάπτυξη μετά τη Συμφωνία της Μεγάλης Παρασκευής. Η Γερμανία μετά την Επανένωση. Μεταβατική περίοδος, οικονομικές πολιτικές και όλοι ξέρουμε πού πήγε η οικονομία της Γερμανίας. Σκεφτείτε τη σταθερότητα και την ανάπτυξη που θα προκύψει. Και το κλείνω εδώ, παρακαλώ, για να δώσω τον χρόνο, επαναλαμβάνω, διότι μας πιέζει πάρα πολύ ο χρόνος. Στους φίλους στο πάνελ, χαιρετίζω την παρουσία του φίλου του Ερσίν, ο οποίος είναι Τουρκοκύπριος. Είναι ένας άνθρωπος ο οποίος πιστεύει στην Κύπρο, πιστεύει στην Ευρώπη και αδειμονώ πραγματικά να ακούσω τη δική του οπτική γωνιά.
Many thanks indeed, Mr. Fourlas, and thank you for planting the seeds for this discussion. In passing it on to the EU, let me just say exactly on your point that the Cyprus Peace Dividend Study that was conducted by the PRIO Cyprus Centre and funded by the European Union proves specifically that a solution to the Cyprus problem would provide a growth of, instead of 4 billion, 24 billion euros within a 10-year period. So literally more than 10,000 euros per person per year, just as a food for thought. With this, then let me turn to Giulia Bertezzolo from the European Union, with the request to have a brief account, if you like, of where things stand from the standpoint of the EU regarding a Cyprus settlement and the work you do. Please be cognizant of the time. We're really, really pressed.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, and thank you to the Cyprus Forum for organizing this event and for inviting me. I think the topic of this panel is particularly important. What we observe, meaning the economic impact that the reunification of Cyprus could have, because what we observe on the ground is a sort of apathy and somehow tiredness about the reunification of Cyprus, and this especially outside Nicosia, and this is particularly due to two main points. The first is that there is some fatigue generated by the many negotiations that have unfortunately led to a no solution. And the second point is related to the first. the fact that many Cypriots seems to have settled for the status quo. And this is less true for the Turkish Cypriot because, of course, despite being part of the EU, they don't have they cannot fully enjoy the EU rights, but still it's true on both sides. So I think it's very important to remind both Greek Cypriot and Turkish Cypriot that the economic benefits for the reunification would be huge. And of course, it's extremely important to remind us also that the reunification could have very important impact also economically for the European Union as a whole. I think people who have preceded me mentioned security, geopolitically. I mean, more stability in the Mediterranean would be an advantage. Also, it would attract more investments, which has definitely an economic impact. It would also ensure a better implementation of many of EU policies, starting from customs union, energy, transport, etc. So now coming to where we stand, of course, I would like to make a little step back and look at where we were a year and a half ago. We were nowhere because there was a total stalemate of the discussion on Cyprus. And I think some movement have been triggered by following the appointment of the UN Secretary General Personal Envoy just 1 year ago. And there was the positive outcome of the meeting in October in New York between the two leaders, which paved the way to two main work streams, one more on the island related to the discussion between the two leaders on the possibility of opening new crossing points, but also if this has a positive outcome to discuss other topics. And the second work stream, which is probably more important if a negotiation will start, is the meeting of the two leaders with the guarantor of power. So we are at a crucial point, but I think we have reason to be positive. A possible agreement on crossing points, we believe, is possible, is doable. So we really hope that this will happen. There was a meeting last week. There will be probably another one next week. And preparation for the meeting with the guarantor power is ongoing. It's likely it will take place at the end of March. So we are hoping that this will lead to negotiations. Of course, as the European Commission, we have supported the UN Special Envoy throughout all her mandate. We have supported also, and I think we played a key role in the positive outcome of the meeting in October. We keep supporting both leaders to bridge the gaps and find common solutions. And I'm very proud to say that even during the stalemate, my unit was, and what the European Union has done on the island has kept the reunification perspective alive. We worked very much with both communities to encourage contact between the two, but also to build economic ties. I mentioned very briefly the improvement of trade across the Green Line, which is extremely important for the island economy, and the solar power plant in the buffer zone that we would like to build. This would not only build a more tight collaboration between the two communities, but would solve some obvious problem in terms of green energy and energy in general on the island. I would like to stop here to be brief. I just would like to say that this is an extremely important opportunity. The discussions ongoing on reunification, I think we should really all do whatever we can to make this happening.
Let's go.
Perfect. Many thanks, Giulia, and many thanks to the European Union for all the good work done on the island. But the EU is not the only organization very active. The World Bank is also doing excellent work. And with that, may I turn to Annalie with a request for an exposé of the views from the World Bank and the work done on the island. Please.
Thank you so much, Harry, and thank you, Nicolas, for having the World Bank participate in this very important meeting today. So Cyprus has been a member state of the World Bank since 1961, so we have a long-standing partnership with the island. Since the Annan Plan negotiations, we also engaged or re-engaged in more operational collaboration through analytical work in the Turkish Cypriot community. And so one of the main advantages that the World Bank brings is its global expertise going beyond regions. And also we have adopted a multi-sectoral approach and a collaborative approach, building on our expertise working in post-conflict countries and on economic integration. So we have been working on two important areas that I want to highlight today. And one is fostering economic convergence supported by the EU aid program. So what we do, we issue annually a macro monitoring report, which I think World Bank is one of the few ones doing that. We also support work on poverty and living standard in the TCC, work on private sector growth and employability. The second point that we have been engaged on is supporting settlement talks when they happened. We provided specific expertise on property settlement mechanisms, on financial integration, and on fiscal federalism. So our role has always been neutral, evidence-based provider of support to Cyprus's journey towards economic integration and a unified future. We believe that Cyprus stands at a pivotal moment in its history today. Economic integration is no longer a possibility. It's actually a tangible opportunity which is waiting to be unlocked. So what are potential pathways to unlock this potential? So first, we've heard it before, is expanding the Green Line trade. Since 2004, the Green Line trade has already expanded, but there are still important barriers, including payments, as many of you would know, logistics, and taxation. So there are several of these challenges that need to be addressed to enhance the Green Line trade. Secondly is labor mobility. This is actually an underinvested area, and we believe can provide an important opportunity to contribute to social cohesion in Cyprus. We believe that understanding the opportunities and challenges of labor mobility can inform more effective policy making for convergence between the two communities. And of course, achieving a comprehensive settlement will help the economy of the island grow. True economic integrations and the full benefits will only come then. A unified, larger economy will be more competitive and more attractive to investors. Let me add one point here on data. So any efforts towards reunification should be informed by robust data. And specifically in the Turkish Cypriot community, this will require important investments. We observe there on a day-to-day basis that a lot of socioeconomic data is not collected on a regular basis, and therefore there will be a major gap between the two communities. One approach could be to align data collection practices between the Turkish Cypriot and the Greek Cypriot communities across sectors to ensure consistency when there will be a settlement. The lack of data at the household, at a family level, is particularly concerning to the World Bank. We believe that reunification will definitely be an important welfare-enhancing measure, but if we don't have data to measure that, we will not know what the impact of reunification would be. And this would potentially leave more vulnerable families at risk. So it's clear that the advantages or the economic advantages of a settlement are outweighing the cost of the status quo, as we've already heard before. Why is this? First of all, there would be a possibility for the island of Cyprus to become an island of stability in what is unfortunately becoming a more fragile region, because Cyprus would be able to leverage its cultural and economic ties in the Eastern Mediterranean region. Second, economies of scale. Integration would, of course, address inefficiencies in the economy, and one bigger economy will be stronger and more competitive. Investment opportunities, as I mentioned, would increase, boosting growth and job creation. And collaboration across the island and with the wider region would drive knowledge sharing and sophistication, fostering, therefore, innovation and productivity. So with this, I would like to conclude by saying that we have in the world beyond Cyprus witnessed examples of similar transformations of economic integration that we should look at. We know that with sound policies and institutional decisions, Cyprus could definitely replicate the success and emerge as a model for shared prosperity. I would like to conclude then by saying that the World Bank remains committed to facilitate the economic foundations necessary for sustainable settlement, and whenever we're called upon during negotiations, we would be present. So thanks so much, Harry, and over to you.
Thank you very much, Annalyn. Thank you. Thank you for bringing in an important perspective of work done on the ground with at least a good intent. Let me turn to Erhan, Ercin, not only for a view from the north, but to me, more importantly, the experience of past discussions we've had on economic convergences and solution, the cooperation paradigms, perhaps, that we've also enjoyed. Erhan, to you, please.
Thank you, Harry. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for the kind invitation, Luca, Nicola. It's, you know, everybody is talking about anniversaries. It was exactly 20 years ago when I was based in Brussels that I received a call from the then Turkish Cypriot leader, Talat, to join unemployment negotiations. Since 2004 until Crans-Montana, I was involved, and we were together with Vangelis during Crans-Montana. I do remember him 2 a.m. in the morning on the very last day making phone calls to Athens, to his prime minister, to achieve some breakthroughs. Therefore, definitely, Luca, I think this is something that we should not extend to new generations. But I will try to give an overall geopolitical view with some tweaks and also focus on some economic prospects, because Giulia and Anneli already established, I think, very important groundwork here. I'm not intending to give a gloomy picture, but the situation is not good. Situation is rather very complex, and I would like to analyze the reasons why we are in this situation today, because this situation requires collective effort. Negotiations for the sake of negotiations can never bring us what we are desiring. We need to analyze and we need to understand what is happening. If we do not draw lessons from the past regarding negotiation processes, we will not be able to design a process that will bring us to the expected outcome. We were very close to a settlement in 2004. We did some things right, some things were wrong. We were again very close to a settlement during Crans-Montana. Some things again was done perfectly, but apparently there were some other things wrong. Therefore, I would like to mention that I will try to analyze this issue at 3 levels: global, regional, and internal level, because this will give us an idea of what sort of things needs to be done at this stage in order to put things back on the right track, because we may envision, desire to have a process, but this process should be designed in a way to bring us to success. Things are changing at global level. I mean, we have unprecedented security changes, especially in our region. I mean, Syria, Lebanon, Middle East issues. These are very complex issues. And on top of that, we are seeing, geopolitical tensions coupled with a shift towards nation-first approach, where every nation is focusing on their national interests, bilateral interests, with a desire to protect only the interests of their nation. This is a fact. We are seeing this, and EU is trying to cope with this. President von der Leyen was trying to address these issues during Davos summit, but we still have lots of things to do. While we have these things in mind, we need to devise what sort of security arrangements is needed in order to basically achieve more stability in our region. Because 20 years ago, when we were closer to a settlement, we had rather like 15, 20 years of stability and prosperity. EU played a very constructive role, provide the soft power there, and that enabled us to have uninterrupted negotiations between 2004 and 2017. What drove us to this point? It was the overall global dynamics. It was EU's perspective was to have an inclusive approach towards our region. That inclusive approach enabled all the regional players to come and contribute. Therefore, I think this is very important, when you consider the global dynamics. In our region, we have important regional players, and we have an important role to contribute European energy security. That can only be achieved if, again, we can establish interdependency in the region. Without regional players playing a very constructive role, we may not contribute, let's be clear, to anything. Yes, Cyprus strategically very important, strategically very crucial place, and could play a very vital role. But in order to do this, we need to achieve interdependency and inclusiveness. And here, EU institutions could play an important role. This is, I think, in my view, very important. Turkey and Greece these days is the only positive thing happening in our region. They have established a very good positive dialogue. But let's remember again, let's look at the past. 2006, again, Athens and Ankara were having exploratory talks, again very positive. But when Cyprus was not able to contribute rapprochement between Turkey and Greece, again, those talks failed. We couldn't go to materialize and finalize those things because, unfortunately, our problem had a negative impact in this situation. Why I am underlining these things? Because we need regional approach, regional stability, regional prosperity, not bilateral, not trilateral. We have to go beyond this, and this is really crucial. Therefore, Cyprus should take bold initiatives to contribute regional rapprochement. And this is really, in my view, very important. And maybe a few minutes about internal dynamics. Yes, we have very important EU instruments. Green Line regulation, financial aid regulation, these are very crucial. And, European countries previously used these instruments very, very effectively. I think we can make benefit of Green Line trade. So far, what we had, when we were negotiating, again 20 years ago, Green Line trade, we had the ambition that this will create a kind of spillover effect, cross collaboration between business people that will drive us to a different place. So what Germany and Ireland achieved could have been achieved. Therefore, one idea just came to me when Loucas was talking. Could this House invite Commission to make a study how to expedite and overcome hurdles in order to achieve more Green Line trade? Because we are not able to benefit from EU instruments. This is something that we need to consider. We need to look how we can use existing EU instruments. And Loucas mentioned, for example, Ireland, International Fund for Ireland, Peace Initiative. These are the things that we need to consider outside of box. This is what Harry said. And we need to consider these things, and it is now high time to consider these elements. And we need to consider how we can establish further collaboration among youth, sport initiatives, perhaps some sort of structures to enable people to enjoy business opportunities, exchanges. This is what happened after Second World War in Europe, and it is still the case, and we need to benefit from this. Therefore, Harry, thank you for your patience. We need to basically call for collective action. Things will not happen by default. We need to persevere for these things. We need to understand and take bold and strategic actions. We need to contribute Turkey-Greece rapprochement, and we need to really see how settlements are achieved and really contribute to this overall concept with lots of constructive initiatives. Otherwise, the regional issues will not enable us to make progress, and we will continue to have stalemate, we will continue to have problems. So thank you very much, and thank you, Nicola, again for the initiative.
Thank you very much, Erhan. All of this, I think, can be summarized in when there is a will, there is a way. And so with this in mind, I think it's a perfect pass on to Erhan Kalpadakis, who has run things for Athens in the past and continues to be engaged on exactly this: when there is a will, there is a way, when there are bold moves that drive things forward. Erhan, can I turn to you with a request to bring in perhaps other important examples we have of opportunities unlocked as an outcome of political resolve, and try to do this in the impossible 4 minutes that is left for the panel. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and thank you for the invitation to Mr. Fourlas and Mr. Kyriakidis. It's great to be here, particularly with Erhan. It is a bittersweet experience, I have to say, because the best moment in my career thus far was exactly the negotiation on the Prespa agreement and resolving the Macedonian issue that I'm going to speak about. And the most difficult moment was on the day after Kran Montana, to shake the hand of the Turkish Cypriot leader, Mr. Akinci, and hear him say that my generation didn't manage to resolve the issue. For the good of all of us and for peace in the region, your generation has to do it. I think that if we're going to talk about Cyprus in general, we've heard extremely important messages about the great progress and the strength that Cyprus has had through these last 20 years, and I'm sure the EU presidency will contribute to the role of Cyprus, but most definitely I echo what has been said, that the real potential geopolitically and economically of Cyprus will be reached after a just and viable solution of the Cyprus issue on the basis of UN Security Council resolutions for the good of the people of Cyprus, Greek Cypriots and Turkish Cypriots. I think if we are to look at lessons learned, we have an interesting case study with the Prespa agreement on the resolution of the Macedonian issue. We have clear differences which make the distance very big in any comparison. The Cyprus issue is an issue about sovereignty, about territory, about security. So in terms of substance, it's a very different issue from the name issue. And there's a big distance in this respect, and it is not comparable. It is not comparable also in terms of its main actors, clearly in terms of size, leadership, in terms of international role. Turkey is a very different actor than North Macedonia, and the framework is a very different framework. So it would be very wrong to make any direct comparisons. But I think it is important to take some examples, if we are to take some lessons learned, for how to find a just and viable solution on an international issue. So referring to this experience, I think number one is the political will that was mentioned. The political will of leadership to deal not only with the diplomatic issues, but to deal with the internal political pressure, and to say that no matter what, we will stay in the room despite our differences. If we cannot solve it on Monday, we'll solve it on Tuesday. If we can't solve it on Tuesday, we'll solve it in a week. But we will insist, and we will not leave the room. Our representatives will not leave the room until we find a solution. And this was very much the spirit that existed in order for the solution to come through between Alexis Tsipras and Zoran Zaev and the foreign ministers Nikos Kodias and Nikola Dimitrov. It's very easy in these issues to start a negotiation with the express goal of winning a blame game. So if you go in, you can find a way to win the blame game. You can find ways to reach a solution where you blame the other party for the failure. But you have to decide that you will not leave the room until until a mutually acceptable decision is found. Second issue, national interests. You need a kind of understanding of the national interests that is broader, that is more medium to long term, and not only just about your direct national interests. What are the interests of your country in a medium to long term? For North Macedonia, it was definitely joining the EU and NATO. For Greece, it was strengthening its role in the Balkans, ensuring peace in the region and in its northern borders, including strengthening the role of Greece itself and the EU, and not of third parties in the Balkans that were growing stronger and stronger. So the broader strategic goals were very helpful in pushing forward for a solution. Number three, the question of ownership. Nobody will solve issues for you if you don't try to solve them yourself. It is catastrophic to expect to find solutions from third parties, not only because third parties don't have your own interests in mind first and don't understand enough the situation, but because your people will never accept any kind of solution if there isn't a level of ownership in the solutions that you've tried to find. So you need to be able to develop this this kind of ownership. There are clearly, and Mr. Fourlas mentioned it, areas where there are misunderstandings, and you need to solve them through a solution. There are areas where there are no misunderstandings. There are differences of interests, and you need to find the area where these can coincide. Number four, the role of international players. Now, just as much as it's important to have ownership in finding a solution, you need to have the strength of international players. For example, the United States was supportive of the PRESPA agreement. The EU was supportive of a PRESPA agreement in a very crucial time. The EU itself played a role both in the substance in the PRESPA agreement and the prospects of North Macedonia. So just as Ambassador Fourlas said about the Cyprus issue and the importance of the EU acquis, or the EU being on the table, you need to include international players to strengthen the incentives for a solution. And that is extremely crucial, and that was crucial also in the negotiations in Crans-Montana, where, in contrast to a stronger role that the EU and the US had in 2018 during the PRESPA negotiations, during the negotiations in 2017, EU-Turkey relations had collapsed. There was no substantial role of the EU. There was a presence, but the political area was not there. At the same time, the then Trump administration had not really taken over or given any political signs of the importance it attached to its East Mediterranean region in 2017. So international players have a very crucial role. And last but not least, the economic dimension that you referred to. There needs to be an understanding that this kind of cooperation has incentives that are economic. Haris, you referred to some in terms of the economic incentives that you can win. With the PRESPA agreement, there was a big part of the agreement that upgraded a strategic cooperation between Greece and North Macedonia to the benefit of both sides. Today we see some of this with the energy projects, the interconnector between Greece and North Macedonia for natural gas that could reach up to Serbia also, and there's great interest and incentives in this direction of energy cooperation and broader strategic cooperation. This, at the time of the negotiations of Crans-Montana, was a much weaker incentive and had collapsed. I think, in general, If we are to look again at the importance of the Cyprus issue today, there are lessons that we can take that could help us rethink and re-support in a substantial way the restart of talks, because it is more than necessary, particularly at this time that we are going through, to talk about peace and cooperation on the basis of international law in the Eastern Mediterranean. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Erhan. I think this, if anything remains from this panel, is the opportunities from a solution, but also the cost of non-cooperation. And I think the combination of the two should be a stark reminder of where things stand. We also, unfortunately, are going to be facing bigger challenges that go beyond the extremely important Cyprus problem, but that could also pave the way towards cooperation simply because we can't afford not to do it. The Eastern Mediterranean and Middle East, as per the UN, is probably the #1 area on the planet where climate change is happening the fastest. We can't afford not to cooperate on this. And an important and very, very worrying piece of information, as of last week, the new study shows that the shores of northern Cyprus are the most polluted on the planet. And this is as an outcome of the non-existence of international monitoring mechanisms in the north. And I don't think we can talk about shores in the north or the south. It's the exact same thing. So interconnectivity, interdependence, cooperation, hence peace. Many thanks to the panel. And we pave the way towards the next, which is going to be an extremely interesting one on a year before the presidency of the Republic of Cyprus in the EU and the prospects of that. Many thanks.